Okay, at some point in your bass journey, you were told that as a bass player or as a musician entirely, that it's very important for you to always practice with the metronome. But the big question is, do you really know how to use the metronome to practice? Now, in today's video, we're going to be looking at how to use the metronome to practice. And not just that, I'm going to be showing you guys most of the important elements in the metronome and their functions and their meaning. Now, this is going to also influence how you're going to be creative and how you're going to apply those licks, those chops that you've learned. If you're going to be applying it on the 1 or on the 2 or the 3 or the 4 of the metronome, depending on the time signature, the beat per minute. I just said something that we're supposed to cover in the lesson. So if that sounds like what you want to learn, grab your bass, grab your notes, and let's get into the video. And before we do that, do have to hit the like button and hit the subscribe button if you haven't done that. Share this video with other bass players who will be needing something like this. It goes a long way to supporting the channel to be able to bring you good videos like this. So if you want to start practicing with the metronome, I believe by now you should have downloaded a metronome app or probably have the metronome machine. Okay, so which is more common in this era where a lot of people just go to like the Play Store app or any of the sites that you can actually get a metronome by just typing metronome. But most of the times I like to practice with the Pro Metronome app. This is not a like ad video or whatever, but this is the metronome that I actually use. But I'm not going to be using it in this video because I can actually access the metronome app on my phone. So I'm going to be using the metronome count from the FL Studio. Before we do that, let's first of all look at some very key elements in the metronome. So first of all, we want to talk about BPM. So when you hear the word BPM, it's an abbreviation for beat per minute, okay? Most times it is used to actually tell the fastness or the speed of the time at the moment, which is the time signature. And most times you have different time signatures. We have a 4/4, we have a 6/8 time signature, we have a 3/4, 2/4, like that. It just goes on and on. So the most common time signature that you find is the 4/4, and then the 6/8, then the 3/4, which is basically the same thing. When you say 6/8, 3/4, they are basically the same thing. Just that the 6/8 is a bit faster than the 3/4. So really quick, let's look at some very key elements that most of the times influence how fast or slow a particular time signature sounds. Especially when you're practicing, you'll notice that at some point you're playing something and it sounds very fast, then at some point it's not sounding fast again, or maybe the same BPM but it's actually sounding slower. Okay, which brings us to what we call the whole note. Now when you talk about the whole note, it's not about like the whole step, half step. Okay, we have whole note, half note, quarter note, eighth note, and then we have the 16th note. So that's what I'm actually talking about in this video. Okay, so when we talk about whole notes, it simply means maybe when you play a particular note and then you hold down that note, or that note sits for the whole 4 beats. So for example, if I have, maybe let's say this BPM is already set at 50, so let's go. So you see that 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4. So what I'm playing currently is a whole note because it sits in the whole 4 beats, right? Now this is where a lot of people get it twisted, because when I'm playing a whole note, you will notice it's kind of slow, right? But when we get to playing it as a half note, you will discover that the same 50 BPM that I just played now that sounds very slow is going to sound a bit faster. Now this is also going to influence how you actually apply your note when it comes to what I always talk about, which is being able to create a continuous note in your play, like a continuous flow that flows like a wave. So if I'm playing on maybe same 50 BPM whole note, right? So 2 3 4. So let's assume this is a song. Can you see that? 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4. You see that? So this is helping me to actually stay in time, at the same time not playing fast, at the same time fitting in my notes, right? If I can actually practice this for long, you notice how clean and clear my notes are sounding because I'm not under pressure. So that's why it's very important to understand how all these things work. So when you're practicing, you know how to implement them in your play. And also when you're playing a lick, you know where you start playing those licks from. Let's look into what we call half notes. Now, half notes is more like playing 2 notes in each 4 beats. So if I have 1, 2, 3, 4, it means that in these 4 beats, I have 2 notes coming in at the 1 and in the 3. So let's go. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I'm trying as much as possible to bring it down to real-time playing, right? So let's assume we're actually playing a song. You will see that maybe if you have a song where you have something like maybe 1, 2, da, 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 da. Now, because I have this understanding, right, you will notice that I'm keeping uniformity in my play, other than just playing maybe something like da, 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 da. Do you see that? That's where a lot of like beginner bass player miss it over the time that I've actually come in contact with most beginners, maybe at the private lessons or stuff like that. I always notice that this is where they miss it, right? And you notice that most of the pro bass players that you look up to or you watch, you will just notice something like this in their play. So when you talk about whole note, it means playing 1 whole note in the whole 4 beats. Now when you talk about half notes, it means playing 2 notes in the 4 beats. Now understanding all these things help you to know how you can actually fit in your licks, your feel into a particular groove or a progression or a time signature, depending on the case. Okay, so let's look at what a quarter note is, which is the most common that we often play when we play with the metronome. Okay, so which is playing 4 beats in 4 beats, if that makes sense. So 4 notes in 4 beats, or let's say 4 clicks, right? Now the metronome I'm using is the FL Studio metronome, so it's not even allowing you to know when the 1 is clicking, so you have to always be the one to count for your 1, right? But when you're using like any other metronome app like the Pro Metronome, you will notice that it has like a 1. When you hear the 1, it always has a different tone, right? Maybe cup, cap, 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 cup. So by that you know that you're already on the 1. So when you miss the count, it's easy to always get back to your root note. Very simple. Okay, so let's play the quarter note together with the time so you see how it goes. So, which is what we commonly do. So playing 1 note per click, right? The same thing as saying you're playing the quarter note. Get 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So earlier in this video, you remember when I said that if you're playing a whole note on a 50 BPM, which is 1 note into 4 beats, it sounds a bit slower, right? And you'll notice as we advance into the half note, it starts to get fast. Now we are playing at the quarter note, it starts to get more busy and fast, right? Which makes it sound different whenever you try to play some certain things and you discover that this same thing I played is 50 BPM, but it's sounding slower or it's sounding faster. So a little deviation from what we're doing, which is actually still related, right? So for example, if I have like a 120 BPM, I can subdivide the 120 BPM. I can be hearing like a 120 click, like maybe 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's assume this is 120, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. I can play this to become like 60 BPM by dividing it by 2. So that represents what we're doing in this class. So if I'm playing maybe quarter notes into 120 BPM, it's definitely going to be fast. And when I subdivide it into half notes, it's going to be a bit slower, if that makes sense. So really quick, for the quarter notes, this actually influences how you're going to apply your licks. Like I said, for you to know if you're coming in at the 1 or at the 2. So for example, you might have a lick that is going like maybe if you're playing 1, 2, 3, 4. So you know when to start playing the lick, maybe from the 3. So let's see. So you go, let me put the metronome to it. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1. Do you notice what I did? So I started playing the lick from the 3, right? So 1, 2, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Do you get it? So that helps you to actually locate the right spot to start applying your lick by understanding how the notes are being divided in the beat. So let's quickly look at the 8th note. Now, 8th note is more like saying times 2 of what we're doing in the quarter note. So that's where you now have stuff like 1 and 2 and 3, stuff like that. So you have to play 8 notes in each 4 beat. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Most times you guys hear me talk about this in worship, right? So you notice stuff like and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. Let me put that to a metronome. So let's go. Just that. So each click is taking like 2 beats or 2 notes in each click. Let's assume this is a song, right? Now this also helps me to know when I'm going to start playing my lick from, right? Very important. So being able to actually calculate how this note sits in the metronome is actually very important. The last but not the least, which are like the common notes that you often find, which are the whole note, half note, quarter note, 8th note, and then the 16th note. So we're talking about the 16th note. So 16th note is basically times 2 of what we're doing in the 8th note. Faster. So 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a. So you can see that if I'm doing 1 E and a, do you see that? So 1 E and a, do you see that? So in each click you have 4 notes. In each click you have 4 notes. So if you put everything together in a 4-beat click, you have 16 notes coming up. Okay, so this is used mostly in a very fast like worship scenario where you have. So let's put it to metronome and see how it goes. 2, 3, 4. I was a bit fast. And a 2 E and a. I'm just splitting it around the progression. Let me put it to just 1 note. So here you go. You see that? So almost like saying what we did in the whole note, right? Which is instead of just playing do and it sits for the whole 4 count, right? You're playing do for the whole 4 count, but now you have to make sure you're getting up to 16 notes. So by doing that and keeping it a time, so you don't just play and then you end up having more than that, right? That's where the 1 E and a, okay, I'm a bit fast. 1 E and a. Do you see that? So if you put these together, you have 4 notes. Times it by 4, you have 16 notes. So now this actually helps you to understand where the notes are starting from in the time. Now it's going to also influence how you're going to be able to put whatever groove you're learning to a song or to a time, which is very, very important. So for example, I'm just going to do a quick example with the let's say a quarter note and then the 8th note. So if I'm playing the major scale on a quarter note, this is what it's going to sound like. So you have, you see that? Click per note per click. Now, this is very simple. Now, you notice that I would have to play the major scale in 2 bars, right? Like 2 4 beats. 1 2 3 4. That's half of the major scale. 1 2 3 4. That's half of the major scale. So if I decide to play the 8th note, you see how it's going to sound like. So do you see that? Go, go, say. Do you see that? Now, this same thing I'm playing, let's extend it by putting in the 16th note into the context. You will see that I'm playing 1 note per click, 1 note per click for the quarter note, and I'm playing 2 notes per click. By that, I'm able to cover the whole ascending order of the major scale from just 1 bar. Now, if I put this same thing to 16th note fill, you notice that I'll be able to play the major scale, ascending and descending order in the same thing. So let's go. Do you see that? So that's why I would have preferred if I was using a metronome that has like maybe a count of 1 2 3 4, which you can actually find in the App Store or maybe the Google Play. Now, one of the things that those kind of app will help you do is to keep you in time, or you can actually find the metronome that has maybe like the 1 to be different, so you know when you're back to the 1. Now, from the experiment I just showed you guys with the quarter note, 8th note, and 16th note, this actually answers why most times you play a certain thing, it sounds fast and it sounds slow. You will notice that the same major scale sounds faster on the 16th note. Okay, so go. You see that? Let's do it on the quarter note. It sounds slower. Do you see that? Now, it's very important that you take these things from the most slowest tempo that you can, so you build comfort, dexterity, and also fluidity, flexibility before you actually move it up to speed. Very important. So if you found any form of value from this video, please do have to hit the like button and share this video with other bass players who will be needing something like this. I'm going to see you guys in the next video. Peace.